So in this video, we will look at some specific update and delete statement examples. And again, we're going to use the person car tables that we created in the insert portion of this set of videos. So a person owns a car. The owner ID is the foreign key that goes over to person. So looking at those, we're going to use them to specify some queries. Let's just quickly review the syntax of the update statement. So we have an update, a table reference, a set value with an assignment list, and the assignment list is typically the column name equals a value, and then a where clause following that. So looking at MySQL again, we are reminded that we have two people in the database. Two people in the database. We have Brian Bennett, we have John Doe. Now, I want to set the street address, city, state, and zip to 2001 Millennium Place, Johnson City, Tennessee, 37614 as the data for those four fields. So how do we accomplish that? I always get in the habit of using the U's at the top so we're certain we know which database schema we are attached to at the given moment. So now I'm going to do update. Which table do I want to update? Well, I'm going to update person. And how do I want to update it? Well, I want to set some values. I want to set the street address equal to a value, and that value is 2001 Millennium Place, comma. I also want to set the city equal to Johnson City, and I also want to set the state equal to Tennessee, and I want to set the zip equal to 37614, which is ETSU's zip code. So notice that I'm not including a where clause, and the reason for that is I want to update all of the records in that table to this particular address. When I run this, notice that it says 2 rows were affected, and we want to look at person to see what happened here. Now we have 2001 Millennium Place, Johnson City, and 37614 in each of these. Well, notice now that the birthdays are null, but John Doe and I are born on different dates, so we want to change this in the system. So now I want to do a separate update statement, update person, set birthday equal to 1999, December 1st. But I only want to set that for myself, not for John Doe. So I can say where person ID equals 1. Typically when you are updating a record, it is good practice to use the primary key in the where clause if you're updating directly. So rather than saying where name equals Brian Bennett, you would say where person ID equals 1. So let's do that and make sure that it works. Notice 1 row affected. So let's select that. Notice that now I have a birthday, but John Doe does not. So we need to correct that as well. So I'm just going to copy that. And where person ID is 2, it was 1988, and I don't remember the date we used previously, but we'll say January 1st, 1988. And I run this. Now I select from person, and we see that that update statement has now been applied to only John Doe. And our update statements in total have resulted in updates to all of the data, and we no longer have blank fields for person 1 or person 2. Now, I want to delete some things from the database, and if you remember, we placed a Honda Accord owned by me and a Mazda 626 owned by John Doe. So I'm just going to simply try to delete some things and see what happens. So let's look back at the delete operation syntax here, and remember, delete ignore from table name, and really that's all that we are required to have. Delete from table name. So let's just go try that. Delete, I type select out of habit, delete from, and then table name, we just want to delete from the car table. When I try to do that, it says 2 rows are affected. And I run this, now there is nothing remaining in the database table. So delete from car wipes out everything. But I really wish that I hadn't done that. I really wish that I had kept that. So how do I get it back? Well, there's no way to get it back unless we retype the query to insert it. So I'm going to say insert into car values, and I'm just going to make something up again. For the VIN, it's a Honda, it's an Accord, and it was owned by person number 1. That was the only things that we said we were going to require, so I need to add a list of columns that says VIN, it says make, it says model, and that says owner ID. So I insert this back into the table. And we see that. So let's insert another one. And again, just making something up. And this was a Mazda and a 626. And notice here that the column count doesn't match at row 2, so I've forgotten the second row. So let's make sure that we have that duplicate entry now. So I need to delete from car first and then reinsert these values. Okay, so now we have 2 cars in the system, one owned by me, one owned by John Doe. But I want to get rid of John Doe completely. Delete from person where person ID equals 1. I'm sorry, 2. We want to get rid of John Doe, not me. So I run that, and it shows I cannot delete or update a parent row because a foreign key is pointing to it. So remember, Mazda 626 is owned by John Doe. This is the parent record that we're trying to delete. So sometimes you would get that information that way. So through that error message. So we could try using ignore to see if it will allow us to go ahead and move along with the delete. But when we use the ignore keyword, let's see what happens. It changed it to a warning, and it said 0 rows affected, 1 warning, cannot delete or update a parent row. So in a situation like this, we would have to update before we could delete. So we have to update the car, and we need to set the owner ID equal to me instead of John Doe because we're trying to delete John Doe, where VIN is equal to 4252HJ. Okay, so now we do the update in car. Let's look at car and make sure. Okay, so both cars are now owned by me. No cars are owned by John Doe. So we should be able to remove the ignore and just delete person number 2, John Doe. So it was there, but now if we rerun this, John Doe is no longer in the database. So that gives you some practice and lets you see a few things for doing updates and deletes in the database, and also a refresher on insert as well.